Cast Iron Cooking with Johnny.
Hi, welcome to Cast Iron Cooking with Johnny. I am Johnny, and these are my cast irons. And today we're going to be making a breakfast potato. It's a home-style potato. It's only going to have potatoes and onion in it today. You can add whatever else you'd want to this recipe, but for now we're just going to do potatoes and onion, and I'm going to show you how to do this in a few easy steps. Now, as far as what potato you're using, we're using a golden potato, a Yukon Gold. This is something I just had laying around the house. You can use red potatoes or russets. I like to use garden potatoes, but I ate all of the garden potatoes from last summer. What I like to do is just simply cut them to a little bit smaller of a size and then slow cook the potatoes. Now, this is going to be an effective way to do it. This way you can do this camping. You can do it at any time. You don't need to boil your potatoes first. You can just take a regular potato, cut it up, and throw it in your pan. And before we make this breakfast potato, we are going to take a little history lesson on when the breakfast potato was first made. Though the potato has been used as a dinner side for centuries, the breakfast potato was discovered by an American logger named Bruce in the 1920s. While cooking his dinner one evening, he consumed an entire bottle of moonshine and promptly passed out. Waking the next day with a massive hangover and a dodgy stomach, he reheated his potatoes from the night before, thus creating an American ritual that continues to this day. That sounds like total hogwash to me. Let's get back to cooking. So we'll begin by just cutting them up. And you just want to take your potato and cut it into maybe a little bit smaller of a piece than you're used to. Just get your potatoes to a size which you like. As I said, the size does matter a little bit because we're not par cooking them. They don't have to be super small, but you don't want them to be too big either. It's just going to take longer for you to cook your potatoes. You also can bake them off in the oven afterward if you like, if they're a little bit thicker, but I prefer just to slow cook them. I think that slow cooked pan potato has a very special breakfast flavor to it. All right, now that we have our potatoes cut up and ready to go, we're going to go ahead and cut a little bit of onion off. Now, the onions are going to cook at a different time than the potatoes, so you need to make sure that your potatoes are most of the way done before you add them. And this is quite a bit of onion. I'm not going to need to use all that, but better have too much than too little. Now that we have our potatoes and our onions cut, we can go ahead and get our pan ready. As I say in my other videos, you want to make sure your pan is hot enough. Today, I'm going to use this number 6. This is a Griswold number 6, and I love it for cooking breakfast stuff. It's smaller. It's about an 8-inch pan, and for one person or two people, it is a perfect size. Now, of course, you can use any size skillet you want. I just like to use all the skillets that I have because I have way too many skillets, and I like to use a variety of them and get them all in rotation. Then we'll grab a little bit of butter here. I think that I'll probably use for these potatoes about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more. You want a good amount of fat. Cooking anything in cast iron is, like I said before, the right heat and the right amount of fat. A lot of people complain about things sticking in cast iron. It's because they don't have their pan heated up all the way. They don't have the right amount of fat. They're not cooking it correctly, and then it will stick. I guarantee these will not stick. These potatoes will be just fine with that amount of fat as long as we get our burner going, which we're going to put our burner on right now at about a medium to medium high heat. We're going to start it at that. We're going to crisp up the outside of the potatoes, toss them a bunch, and then we're going to lower the heat and continue to toss them, and it's going to take a little while. If you want to make a quick potato, then maybe par cooking them or cooking them the night before and then adding them in the morning might be your thing, but I like to cook my potatoes slow. I think it turns out great. I think the breakfast potato is something a little bit more special when it has a crispier, slow cooked taste to it. So I would say go ahead and get your pan nice and heated up. It's going to take anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes for your pan to reach the right temperature. Now, I know that seems like a long time, but once that pan just starts to smoke a little bit, then you know you're ready to go. So keep your eye on your pan, and then you're going to add your butter, and then we're going to add our potatoes. We'll get cooking. All right, we're going to add our fat here, move it all around. We're going to make sure that it gets on every edge of the pan. You want to make sure you have butter or oil, no matter which one you want to do. Make sure that you're covering the whole pan before you throw in your potatoes. That fat is really important. So we're going to toss those potatoes in. Now we're just going to make sure that the potatoes are all contacting the pan here. And then we are going to let them sit for about 3 to 5 minutes. Now it's important also not to move the potatoes to let them sit, especially this first time that you're putting them in. You want them to crisp up, and they will naturally release from the pan when they are ready to release. So when you have that thin layer on there, they're going to lift up regardless. A lot of times what I'll do is just shake the pan, and if the potatoes are moving, as you see they're not right now, they just need a little bit longer. And once you give it a shake and they start to move on their own, then they're ready to be flipped. Now as you can see, once you start to give it a toss, you can see those crispy edges building up on the pan. And that was done without a spatula. You don't actually need the spatula in order to get your potatoes flipped. Now I do use a spatula, as you can see here, to make sure that I'm getting specific potatoes flipped on the sides that I want, in the beginning especially. But don't worry, by the time we're done cooking these potatoes, all of them will be fully cooked and all be crisped around the edges. Now we still have it on a medium-high heat, and it's going to be cooking like this for the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 rotations, and it's going to be about 3 minutes each. So like I said, it does take a little bit longer to cook the potatoes than it would if you had par cooked them and just want to crisp out the outside. But I'm telling you, they turn out very good, and I prefer them to a par cooked potato. Now that we've got some crispiness on the potatoes, we're going to turn that heat down to a medium-low. I set it to about a number 2 or 3, depends on your range. But the point of this is that now that we have that initial crispiness, we're going to slowly cook them for up to 15 minutes, depending on how thick the potatoes are. And you can just check them as you go, pull a potato out, give it a bite, give it a toss. Now that these potatoes are getting about to be done, we're going to spread these potatoes around, and that's where we're going to add our onions. Just go ahead and add as many onions as you would like. Give it a toss. And we're just going to saute these onions and potatoes until the onions are done, and they will be ready to go. Okay, they are done. As you see, the bigger potatoes are cooked, the smaller potatoes are cooked, and everything's perfectly sauteed in there. And as you also can see, they're not sticking to the pan at all. Now, as I said before, it's going to take a little bit of trial and error to figure out exactly how long you want to cook them with your pan and with your range. And these times are all just a little bit subjective. So give it a shot, cook a little bit of potato. If you mess up, it's no big deal. And if you end up having everything done and it's a little bit tough, then the potatoes are a little undercooked, you can throw them in the oven and roast them off just for 5 to 10 minutes to make sure that they are fully cooked. Now, another thing you can do with this recipe is add whatever you'd like. Sometimes I'll add some kale at the end. Sometimes I'll add some bell peppers, whatever you'd like to throw in there. This is just the basic idea of how to get the potatoes done all the way through. This is definitely a good starting point to figure out your breakfast potato in a cast iron and a way to make sure that they don't stick. Now, I know this is gonna take a little bit longer to cook than you're used to, but I swear if you do it, you're gonna really love it. I like cooking, so a little bit longer to me is better. And I think the flavor is gonna come out better, and hopefully you learned how you can get it to not stick by using the right fat, right heat, and a little bit of patience. It should pay off in the end. That about wraps up my breakfast potato video. Check out my other videos for other recipes, and I'll talk to you guys later.